Hi, this is Erica Merrill, and I'm the founder of Perfect Legal Video. I'm very excited to have with us today Attorney Nicole Reeves Lavallee. She is the owner of a law firm in Worcester that specializes in family and real estate law. And we are very fortunate to have her with us. It has been a few weeks because of our vacations, but so bear with us. But it's great to be back on track with these interviews. And today we are going to be talking about a topic that could have to do with both of your areas of law. Is that right, Nicole?
That is correct. It's one of those things that very frequently overlaps one another.
So today we'll be talking about selling a house that has multiple owners. And I mean, what typically happens? I mean, are there a lot of arguments? Are there certain things that you commonly see when there are multiple owners?
Yeah, I mean, I think it runs the gamut. It depends on what the relationship is with those owners, why they're no longer getting along. Obviously, spouses and people that are divorcing are simpler, if you will, because we're going to address it all in a separation agreement. We're going to address it in your divorce, and then you can at least move on from there. So that's probably the easiest one to handle. It's when, it's a boyfriend girlfriend situation and now we broke up, whether we have a kid or not, but now we have this house together and I don't want to live in the house. Or a lot of times people leave their houses to their children, and we've got brother and sister who hate each other. I just had another one the other day where it was two best friends and one of the friends died, and now the question is, who's the owner? Is it going to the remaining best friend, or is it going to best friend and the child of the decedent? So you run into these situations in a multitude of ways, and I think the biggest thing is, again, how did that relationship deteriorate? When did it deteriorate? How can we best address it? So there are remedies available. That's the good thing. We can go into court pretty much in land court, superior court, or family court, depending on what's best for us, given the circumstances, and do a petition to partition. So we have the ability to do that. The question is just, how much litigation are you going to have to deal with? How much pain are we going to have to deal with? How much grief? And that really kind of depends on the court as well as the other party.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And you do hear a lot of nightmares. I mean, I'm sure that before they even sell, there's a bunch of fighting over who gets the house if there is a situation where it was left to everyone in the will. And, somebody might want to keep the house and can't afford to. And the other two people might want to sell it because they want to get the money right away. So there's a lot of situations for you to deal with, I'm sure. And it's a lot of fun. So I guess just on that line, uh, does everyone have to sell the house? Can one person keep the house and buy everyone else out? Or can they sell part of the house? Or I mean, you've mentioned so many scenarios. What if not everybody wants to sell?
And that's the great thing about it, because if not everyone wants to sell, that's what a petition to partition does. It basically forces the sale. So it might be that, hey, look, I really want this house. I don't care about my siblings. I need to keep it. It's my family home. I grew up here. My parents and all my memories are here. How dare you take it away from me? And maybe my sibling just wants the cash. So again, can it be something just like you said, where I'm doing a buyout of my siblings' share? Sure, if we can agree on a price, if we can agree on a number that's suitable. So again, it's sentimental to me. The house is worth, it's priceless, right? Well, great. Put a price on priceless, because there's going to be a fair market value. So when the fair market value comes in at 400,000, I go, yeah, but it's priceless, but it's really only worth 200. Well, guess what? You're going to run into a little bit of a problem there. So we really have to figure out what that value is. And again, if I'm sharing it with one other individual, chances are it's 50-50. So if it is 400,000 and there's no mortgage, I've got to theoretically either come up with $200,000 to buy that person out, or I have to put a mortgage on the property for 200,000. That's assuming there's no mortgage. But if there is a mortgage, then I'm going to have to get a mortgage for even more. So we really have to look at those numbers. So there might be a right of first refusal, but both parties have to agree. The harder part is when you have two people and both of them insist on keeping the property. Then the only thing we can do is force the sale.
That sounds like something that might not be too easy. I mean, I know people that stay living together for a long time because they don't want to lose their house. And I have a friend who had a longtime boyfriend, basically a husband, but they just never got married. And they broke up finally. They had a 22-year-old kid. They finally broke up, and she met someone else. She's still living there. She's been with this other person like almost 2 years, but they live, in separate states, and they love to be together. But it just can't, like, the boyfriend had put down the ex-boyfriend put down the deposit, and they can't, like, he wants her, she's gonna have to leave, and she doesn't want to leave. So it's not a good situation, and it's super messy, and people will just keep living those lives that they don't want to live in order to hold on to real estate. Have you seen a lot of that?
Absolutely. And especially when the market is going through the roof, they're like, well, the one person's going, hey, I want to sell because now the property's worth $700,000. We bought it for 300. That sounds great. The other one's like, no, one, I can't afford that. And two, it's my house. And that has so much value. It's my house. And you go back to, no, I can't force you to sell it. The question is really going to become, how much money are you going to get? Because when we go through the process overall is relatively painless, because a third party is going to come in and be appointed commissioner, and they're going to sell it, and they're going to hire their broker, and they're going to do everything. And so literally you don't have any say in it. So it really boils down to, again, coming up with something that you both can live with.
Have you ever seen where somebody actually sells the house and they're not supposed to? And it's actually been left to other people? I mean, I know when you guys are dealing with divorce and death and all of those things, sometimes you don't find out till transactions have happened that someone else should have been in on a will or a deal, or like there was a child, like you were mentioning before, of the deceased, and they should have had a piece of the pie. Is that something that happens? And if so, what do you do for that?
It happens more often than not. The simple fact of the matter is, unless you own it as husband and wife tenants by the entirety, it doesn't matter. I can sell my half whenever I want to. So if I own it with you, Erica, as joint tenants, and then I say, I can't stand her. Oh my God, why did I buy a house with her? I'm going to sell it to John Smith over here. I'm going to get my $300,000. Now John Smith owes it with Erica. And that's exactly what happened. So you own it with a complete stranger, and he is now moving in the house, and you're going, what the hell just happened? So it could be something like that. Generally, it's usually something where a family member has passed away, and now their children own it, and they own more of a fractional share. But certainly, again, if you don't own it as a husband and wife, which is a one unit, in that particular scenario, you have to sell it as one unit together, then absolutely. If you own it joint tenants or tenants in common, I can sell my half to whoever I want, whenever I want, and you can't stop me.
One unit, they can sell part of the unit to someone? Like
Nope.
a
So
share?
no. So if it's a husband and wife situation, they're treating a husband and wife as one unit, one person. So they are not allowed to sell it to anyone else unless they're selling it together. If it's me and you owning it as joint tenants, or me and you owning it as tenants in common, then there are two people, and either person can sell to whoever they want.
Wow, that's very interesting. I mean, I can't even imagine having that situation and all of a sudden a new tenant slash owner is moving in as a roommate. That's crazy.
It again, it usually happens more with family members, and now somebody passed away and now they became an owner. But yes, it definitely can happen. I mean, the reality is, why would John Smith want to buy my half and still only own a half of it? He's not going to want to fix it up. He's not going to want to have to deal with you. So the reality is, that's probably an unlikely scenario, but can it happen? Absolutely.
I mean, I could see it possibly happening if it's a, a townhouse split between one building with multiple units in it, maybe a couple of townhouses, maybe a few apartments. I mean, that's a little less tricky, I guess, if you were going to do that. But so is there a way that they could separate the property and have it be official so that one
So
person can sell their piece?
So if you have, like you said, a duplex, or you have a triple decker, that happens more often. Where it's a great thing. These mom and dad has a triple decker. They have three children, and they leave it to all three children, and each child unilaterally claims a floor. Except at some point they decide, nope, I want to sell my half or my 1/3, because again, they own 1/3, and they want to just sell their floor because they decided it was their floor. No, it's one deed. So yes, you can convert it to a condo situation, and then it would become three different condos, and you'd have to have condo association and condo dues and all of those things. But yes, you could convert it if you had the right number of owners and the right number of units. But that's really the only case that it works in. So again, if you have a duplex and it's owned by two people, arguably you can create two separate deeds or two separate units entirely. And same thing with a triple decker or something of that nature.
So I know that when I was going through my divorce, I had to go get a whole new mortgage to take over the house because that's what I got in my settlement. However, if I had not been able to somehow refinance, take over the payments, I would not have been able to keep the house, I'm assuming. I mean, what happens if you can't pay your mortgage or you can't put it over in your name because maybe you have really bad credit or you're not making enough income? There's a lot of scenarios where you wouldn't be able to afford the mortgage.
And if you're going through litigation, that's something that every judge is going to want to have, that caveat of, yes, you're going to do this buyout of X amount of dollars, but we want to have the contingent of, if you can't pay off the other party and do that buyout within so many days, you're going to have to put it on the market. So the reality is, you're going to have to find another family member, find somebody else to co-sign with you, something of that nature. See if you can get maybe a home equity line instead of another mortgage. Stuff of that might be helpful. At the end of the day, if none of those remedies are available, you're going to end up having to force to sell the property.
I must know a lot of divorced people because I've got so many stories. But I do know someone that opted that neither one of them had a lot of money, but they wanted the kids to stay in the house with the mom. And so they said that once the kids graduated high school, they would sell it, then they could split the profits and they could do whatever they wanted with the profits. So, I mean, that seems like a fair, if you can afford to do that, that seems like another fair solution that some people come up with.
And I think that's absolutely an option. I mean, that's always an option. The question is, again, when somebody's breathing down your throat and saying, I really need this property sold, you're really going to be under that time constraint. But certainly, yes, absolutely. People can say, no, I will agree. I will pay the mortgage and I will do all these other things. And you can obviously look at like an assumption of a loan or a refinance or something of that nature to remove the other party. But again, that's all else fails, it's going to be forced to be sold.
Now, what happens if you are behind on the mortgage and you're trying to sell? I've heard these nightmare situations, especially where bankruptcy and divorce go hand in hand sometimes, and it's really unfortunate when that happens. But sometimes the wife or the husband or the partner, they do not know that the person who said they were paying the mortgage might be quite a bit behind and might even be on the verge of bankruptcy, or had papers for that they have never shown their significant other.
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's one of those things that it's very tricky because it really depends on where it is. I mean, sometimes, your name's on the deed and your name's not on the mortgage, so you have no way of knowing that it's behind. So that's a whole problem in and of itself. Obviously, if your name is on the mortgage, then you're at least getting the notifications and they're notifying you that you're behind on the mortgage, same way they're notifying the other party that's not paying it. It really boils down to how quickly you can do something about it. If it's something that we're behind in the mortgage, maybe it's just, hey, I will either pay this now because I don't want my credit ruined, or we'll look at it as an offset later on if we've already reached an agreement and you're going to pay me, $50,000. But if I'm going to pay the mortgage for the next 3 months, I want to make sure I get that credit back. So you're going to pay me $53,000. So something of that nature where you might be able to do an offset. The question is really going to boil down to how much of an ability do you have to bring that mortgage current? Because if you don't, then we're really going to be looking at, okay, if you're not married, maybe the two of you are filing individual bankruptcies. Maybe it's something that we need to look at doing a loan modification, something of that nature. We really need to work together rather than fighting. By the same token, maybe it's, hey, it's the spring market and we need to list this property today, and we need to list it with a broker that is actually top notch, that is going to do their job and not go, I'm going to charge you less commission, but I only do this part-time. No, you really want to make sure that you have somebody that's really going to push to get that property sold as quickly as possible. I had a couple the other day that was, basically in foreclosure, and we closed the Friday before the Monday foreclosure. So you really got to have those people on top of things so that you can get that money and put it in your pocket rather than giving it to a third party.
Well, that's really interesting. What about now I think that a lot of people are in this situation that bought houses during this crazy spike in real estate values just over the last couple of years during COVID, and now the values have all dropped. Now, what if some of those people that are also going through divorces because of COVID situations where they were stuck with their spouses that they already didn't really care about, and now they've decided that they want to move on? Now their houses are worth less than their mortgage. And if they sell, they are going to owe the bank money if they cannot get their price. What happens in those situations?
You need a really good broker and you need a really good attorney. Because there might be occasion, depending on the circumstances right now, we might be able to do a short sale. And that's going to be your best bet that, hey, look, we agree we're underwater, but we're going to sell it to a third party. We're going to get the most money possible. And then we're going to go back to the bank and say, hey, forgive this 50,000, 100,000, whatever that magic number is, and let us walk away. Because the banks are not in the business of foreclosing. The banks are not in the business of being landlords. They don't want any of that. They want their money. So sometimes it's reasonable for them to go, yeah, we'll take that loss. Now, again, they're going to look at circumstances. They're going to, you make $1 million, they're going to go piss off. I don't care. Take it out of your bank account. But by the same token, I've been unemployed during COVID and I'm still unemployed. And my husband was in a car accident and is on part-time disability. And we only have one little retirement account that's $20,000. Well, they're obviously going to be more sympathetic to that where these people live paycheck by paycheck versus somebody that has $50,000-$60,000 in a bank account that they can use to pay it back. So really, again, good attorney, good broker is going to be able to sell that property, get this short sale on it, and then get that debt forgiven.
I mean, and you're hoping for reasonable banks, and it's good to hear that they usually are. So that's really great. What if you are going through a foreclosure, or maybe you inherit a property that's just in the process of being foreclosed upon. I mean, I was in an agreement with a building that somebody didn't really care about. They just wanted to get their price and it was falling apart. And I don't know if they actually ever sold it, but he had inherited this building that was, really old and needed new siding, new roof, just had leaks everywhere. And, it's who knows what situation they were in. They could have been in a foreclosure situation. What happens in that case if you do inherit a property or are going through a divorce or a breakup where your property is being foreclosed upon? You did mention short sales. Is that the only option?
No, I mean, obviously you can obviously if it's a property that needs a lot of work and you inherited it and it's probably not worth much, maybe you just let the bank foreclose on it. I mean, obviously that's an option. You can do nothing. You can always do nothing. You can file for bankruptcy and theoretically put the balance of the amount owed in the mortgage in a Chapter 13 plan. So you can do something like that if you wanted to. Or you can work with the bank and try to get them to go, hey, have a broker. This is a top-notch broker. This is what I think I can do. And at the end of the day, I do have some money if you let me sell it, even with the broker's commission, but you have to give me some time. So it really depends on what you want to do. And again, if there's money, if there's equity, then the bank will go, okay, well, again, we don't want to go to auction and spend all this money in legal fees. We can just hold off for another 30 days. Let's see where we're at. Oh, wait, you did nothing in those 30 days. You're a big fat liar. Now we're going to proceed. Or, hey, there's a purchase and sale and we're looking to close in a month. Okay, well, then we'll extend it another month. So it really depends, again, on how diligent you are in terms of getting that property sold or getting them the money they want. Because again, all they care about is their money. They don't want to be landlords. They don't want to be anything other than getting their money. That's their primary focus, is give me my money and I'll walk away. Obviously, it is secured with the collateral of the house, but they don't want to do that. They don't want to have to evict you. They don't want to have to deal with all the nonsense. They'd rather just go, hey, money in our pocket, great. So there are options. Again, it just depends on how quickly you act and, more importantly, how well you communicate with them. So again, having that good attorney on your side is going to be the most important thing.
And speaking of good attorneys on your side, great segue. If you are in the process of a divorce, a breakup, a real estate situation that you need great counsel for, absolutely give Nicole and her team a call in the Worcester area. Nicole Reeves Lavallee is fantastic. Her and her team are very, very knowledgeable, and they have great strategies to get you the outcomes that you want. And I wanted to thank you so much again, Nicole, for coming on the show. This information is incredibly valuable. You save people hundreds of thousands of dollars all the time. So thanks again for joining us, Nicole.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Again, hope it was helpful for everyone.
Absolutely was. And we will see you again next week. I hope everyone has a great weekend, and thank you for watching.